What's up, everybody? It's your boy Sports PSP in the building. Hope everyone enjoyed Merry Christmas. I hope everyone is enjoying the holiday season. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves with food, family, friends, all that good stuff. Unfortunately, we got to talk about some tough news. In case you haven't heard it, regarding the NFL, the Denver Broncos have announced they have fired Nathaniel Hackett, the head coach of the Denver Broncos, after a 4-11 record. Few things to point out. During Nathaniel Hackett's time with the Denver Broncos, Denver had the fewest scoring offense in the NFL with 15.5 points. They also gave up the most penalties in the NFL with 107. On top of that, they have scored the fewest total touchdowns on offense with 22. Now, why was Nathaniel Hackett hired as the Denver Broncos to begin with in the first place? Well, back in January 2002, he was known for providing energy. He was the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers for 3 years under head coach Matt LaFleur. And on top of that, he and Aaron Rodgers had a great relationship. And because of their relationship, there was speculation that Aaron Rodgers was going to go to Denver. Who knows? But Denver decided to go with Russell Wilson. They decided to trade him for multiple draft picks. On top of that, they gave Russell Wilson a fat contract that he couldn't refuse. 5-year, $245 million, including $165 million guaranteed. And this season has been a disaster, a catastrophe, abysmal for the Denver Broncos. And look, somebody had to go between Nathaniel Hackett or Russell Wilson. Nathaniel Hackett had to go because of all the reasons that I just said. He was known for offense, okay? Being under head coach Matt LaFleur, you know, the relationship you had with Aaron Rodgers, especially the last couple of seasons in 2020 and 2021 when Aaron Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs. There was some questionable ideas or methods regarding his play calling. For an example, week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks, when it was close in the fourth quarter, instead of putting the ball in Russell Wilson's hands, you decided to attempt a 64-yard field goal. And it even got so bad to the point back in November, he decided to hand over the play calling responsibilities to quarterbacks coach Clint Kubiak, who is the son of Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak, who led the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl in 2015, beating the Carolina Panthers in Super Bowl 50. You know, it's been 7 years since Denver, post Peyton Manning, they've had guys at quarterbacks from Drew Lock, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, Teddy Bridgewater, Joe Flacco. The list goes on and on. And none of those quarterbacks panned out well. And certainly neither has Russell Wilson. I mean, if you look at Russell Wilson, based on his stats this season, he's 16th in the NFL in passing yards. He's tied 25th in the NFL in touchdown passes. He has 12. He's tied 17th in the NFL in interceptions. He has 9 interceptions. And QBR on a scale of 0 to 100. He's 29th in the NFL with a 34.9 QBR rating. And passer rating, he's at 82.6, and he's barely completing over 60% of his passes. He's at 60.1. He's on pace to throw 14 touchdowns and 10 interceptions this season. Yesterday's loss against the Los Angeles Rams, look, Denver's defense really let them, Denver's defense, prior to the game, they were playing well. It was one of those days where Denver's defense couldn't do much. And it was just horrible. They even made Baker Mayfield look like he was the second coming of Drew Brees. I mean, Baker was 24 of 28, over 200, about 230, 235 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Baker played exceptional, and I thought Baker, to his credit, did well and validated why he could still play in the NFL as a starter or be a backup. But back to the Denver Broncos and back to Russell Wilson. That was just horrible. The first 2 drives, Russell Wilson, were interceptions. One to Durant, Kobe Durant, and the other one to his former teammate, Bobby Wagner. Russell Wilson was just awful. And in that game, he was 15 of 27, 214 yards, 55.6 completion percentage. He threw 3 interceptions, only had 1 touchdown in garbage time, and was sacked 6 times. He had a passer rating of 54.2 and a QBR. He had a 3.5. A 3.5 QBR for a guy that you paid over $200 million and over $100 million guaranteed. So, it has been a horrible season for Russell Wilson. It's gotten so bad. I mean, let's look at the game against the Tennessee Titans where one of the defensive players got into his face. I mean, it even got so bad in yesterday's game. Offensive line is going after each other, going after the backup quarterback. So it was just a disaster for the Denver Broncos. And I've said this before, considering the fact that Denver has been eliminated from playoff contention or entering the playoffs, what's the point of even playing Russell Wilson? Yeah, I get it. You paid him a ton of money, but this season has been an absolute joke. It's been an embarrassment. It's been an embarrassment. Now you can look at some of the things. You can look at injuries, the Javonte Williams injury, the Tim Patrick injury, etc., etc. Yes, I understand offense has been depleted due to injuries. But Russell Wilson, last time I checked, he was paid a huge amount of money to overcome that, considering all the quarterbacks that I just mentioned before him. And he's far from what he was in Denver. Far from what he was in Denver. Seattle has won the trade because they're still competing for a playoff spot. Geno Smith by far has outplayed Russell Wilson this year. He made the Pro Bowl this year, well deserved. And unfortunately for Russ, man, it's just an abysmal. And I've said it before, and I've said about his personality. I'll stand by it. I don't care what anyone says. The dude is just flat out corny. And he's got to stop saying Broncos country, let's ride, because it's getting old and annoying and embarrassing. So you're going to have to come up with some other strategies or ways in order for yourself, Russ, to become a better player and to become a better teammate. So that's all I'm going to leave on there with Russell Wilson. I just think overall he's been horrible, and he has been a primary reason for the departure of Nathaniel Hackett. Because if Russell Wilson had shown what he was in Seattle, and if Denver's offense would match up with their defense, because right now their defense, they're 7th in the NFL in scoring. They're only letting 20.3 points per game. If their offense would actually match up with their defense, Nathaniel Hackett would still have a job right now. And Russ plays a huge role for that because, after all, he does play quarterback, the most important, the most valuable position in football. Nathaniel Hackett is number one because, again, the undisciplined. As I mentioned, Denver does lead the NFL in penalties. Randy Gregory was also suspended for his involvement in a fight with the Rams offensive guard. I think his name was Ode Abushi. And as a result, he was suspended for 1 game. And Nathaniel Hackett, this is also on him as a leader, and he's proven he's not a leader. At best case, Nathaniel Hackett is an offensive coordinator. He's going to have to work himself back up in order to get a head coaching job in the NFL. I think he is best suited as an offensive coordinator. I just hope and I wish him nothing but the best. But as a head coach in the NFL, sorry. I just don't see it. And with Denver, I hate to say this for Russ, but I would consider convincing Russ to take a pay cut. I would consider Russ to take a pay cut because I'm paying him this amount of money for him to play like a top-tier quarterback, and he's played awful. He's played awful this season. He's played awful. He looks just as bad, if not worse, than Zach Wilson or any other quarterback that you can possibly think of who's playing awful this year. Baker Mayfield outperformed you. Mind you, this is a guy who's been on 3 teams in the same year: Cleveland, Carolina, and now the Rams. He outperformed you. So, I mean, how much does it hurt Russell Wilson's legacy? Look, you can't take away what he accomplished, what he did in Seattle. He made 9 Pro Bowls. He went to 2 Super Bowls. He won a Super Bowl. But in Denver, this is a major hit. Not just in terms of his play. I still believe he's a Hall of Famer, but in terms of his play this year, it took a major hit. And it's also taken a major hit as far as his leadership and personality. So, and guess what? For Denver, they look crazy because I'm reading this article. I'm reading this one from Jeff Lakewold, who covers the Denver Broncos. I'm reading it right here. Let me see right here. Then the Denver Broncos had 2 possible candidates they could have went with instead of Nathaniel Hackett. You know who those 2 other candidates were? Then Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell, who's the current head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, who's second in the NFC as we speak behind the Philadelphia Eagles, 12-3, just won the NFC North Division. And the other possible candidate is Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. Those were 2 candidates that the Broncos should have hired. And instead, you went with Nathaniel Hackett, all because you thought there was a possibility that you could get Aaron Rodgers. But instead, you got Russell Wilson. So Denver's going to have to make some major changes. There has to be some improvement. Unfortunately, they can't do anything in the draft because, remember, they traded up those first-round picks and other picks just to get Russell Wilson. So 2023 is not going to be a great year for them as far as with the draft. The best thing that they can do is move on, forget this year. And I've said it before, bench Russ for the remainder of the season. Because why bother watching him at this point? So there has to be some serious changes in Denver. But anyway, those are my comments. That's all I really have for you at this particular point. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did you think that, were you shocked with the decision that of the Broncos firing Nathaniel Hackett? Who's at fault? Is it Nathaniel Hackett? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it the organization, management? Whatever the case may be. Outside of that, it's your boy Sports PSP. Hope you all enjoying the rest of your day and continue to enjoy the holiday season. And as usual, God bless.